Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Minaj and I will be doing a tutorial on Spring Boot, and we will create a web application which will be a full CRUD application, and that will create, read, update and delete from a database. So for this application we will use Visual Studio Code, which is a lightweight IDE and it's technically a text editor. And the reason for this is if you have an older computer and less powerful, still you can practice Spring Boot with it. And before we proceed, I would like to show what we are going to build, so you have an expectation. And if you need to follow the tutorial, that's fine. If you already know it, then you will skip it to the new video, which will be on money-to-money relationship or and one-to-money. So for this one, we will be building a web application like this. And this is like, we have a company, call it XCARS company, and we want our employees to give us ideas what the new model of car should look like. But technically the main purpose behind this web application is to practice these DDL commands on the database. So instead of just having the data, rendering it in DOM element, or for example with JavaScript, you want to save it in a database and retrieve it. So all it does is all these CRUD applications. For example, you can add a new idea and you want to say like flying and driving over mountains, just an idea. Then we say like, oh, I don't like that one, so change it to something else, like solar cars, and submit. So now that's updated. If you don't want an idea where we don't like something, we want to just click on it and delete it. And the last one is to get the idea of this one, like specifically there are like two objects right now in the table, but I want to get all the information about this if it has extra details, or we have relationship. So that's actually targeted toward the second video. But this one is, we want to retrieve this item, this object from database. So when you say show, it will go and show us the post ID and this the text, and that's also the route where it picked it up from. But then click back home to get back to main page. So that's about the web application. And for this, I no longer need it, so I'm gonna close this one, and we will be building that application on the first series of this video. And the second thing I would like to share is MyEnvironment. I have installed Java and Maven. I did not include Java installation in this video because there are enough videos about how to install Java. And let me put the dark background to the front. So to make sure you have installed Java and which version, just type Java version and it will give you the version. As long as it's Java 8 and above, it will work. And the other thing is you want to make sure that Maven is installed, and just run maven-v. It will show the version and where it's installed. So that's MyEnvironment. And the other the third element we need is a database. For this tutorial I use MySQL. So I have installed MySQL server to connect and create database with it. And here's my workbench, MySQL workbench. And and this one we will create a database and connect them to our web application. And if you see, my port is different because I have installed MAMP, and in MAMP it's a PHP local environment server. So that's the port, and that's the username and password. It's the only thing about this one is like I like the like you can you can start and stop the server anytime you want, and you can make changes. You don't even need to have the SQL workbench for this one, because still you can manage it by going to PHP MyAdmin, and it will give you access to MySQL. But I don't want to make this complicated, but that's one thing you can try out. But rather than that, all you need is a database, and that can be any database: MySQL, PostgreSQL, or the Microsoft SQL Server, or even Oracle. So that's the third element we need. The fourth one, we definitely want to have Visual Studio Code, and that's where we will be building our web application, and we will use it as an IDE. So the last part I would like to talk about is why we want to use Visual Studio Code. It is lightweight, and you don't need a big or a strong computer to run your application, because there are extensions you install and it doesn't have all the features as Intellij Idea has it, which constantly checks whatever you type and matches, and there are errors, it gives you the error back, and it does a lot of things automatically for you. So Visual Studio Code is light, and it's easier to work with it, and you can customize it as you want it. And finally, it's a free product, so that's why we will use it. But there are other two important tools that you can use for creating web application on SpringBoot. The first one, if you're a beginner, I highly recommend using SpringToolSuite, but it does need a modern kind of strong enough computer to render and create application. And even though I have a MacBook Pro 2018 15-inch, and the processor is pretty good, it has enough, like 16 GB RAM, and it still kind of sometimes struggles with handling if I have more projects here. But it has a lot of benefits, so I will talk this later, but this is one of the good things. So good option. And the other one is Intellij Idea. You can definitely use this one, but remember that it comes to two different editions. One is Community Edition, and the other one is Professional Edition. So Professional Edition is not free, and the license is per year. If you have one at the office or you can afford, that's probably the #1 choice. But when it comes to Community Edition, a lot of things are missing. So when comparing the Community Edition with Visual Studio Code, it's better to probably use Visual Studio Code. That's my point of view. But there are people that they like it, and probably have used PyCharm. This company, NetBeans, they do a good job of producing good quality software. And the good thing about this is Java is very well integrated in Intellij Idea. So if you use Intellij Idea, you will have good like error checking and extra stuff for like interfaces and APIs that will work with your application. It will make it easier for you to tackle problems or debug codes and issues in your application. But anyway, for us, we will focus more on Visual Studio Code. But the only thing I would like to point out, when you use a product like this, like Intellij Idea or Eclipse or SpringToolSuite. So SpringToolSuite is an extension on top of Eclipse, or you can call it the plugin. But Eclipse is the main base of it. If you use those, they are the best fit for Java Spring Boot 2. The only difference between these IDEs and Visual Studio Code, once you install it right out of the box, is, for example, when I create a class, I would choose type class, and I'll give it the class name, and it will automatically put the package and class name. So that's one thing we will be doing it manually in Visual Studio Code. And the other thing is, when we create a package is technically a folder, but once we create it where we need it, it will put the address. For example, you would say a new package. In Visual Studio Code, we will type a new folder. So instead of saying like new package, we won't have new package. We will have to create a new folder, and that will be a package. Technically, a package or folder is the same, but it's the only difference when you want to name a package or point it as a package is that we say like these data belong to this packages and that belong to this application. That's it. So these are the minor differences, and we are done with the brief information with these two. So I'm going to close these two for now. Back to Visual Studio Code, and please make sure you check that the software is installed. And after that, we need some extensions. So we will come to extensions, and these are the extensions we need. SpringBoot extensions, Maven for Java by Microsoft, and Java extension pack by Microsoft. And we do need this one to initialize our package. And these are some other optional items that you can plugins you can install, but this one is like the package we need. So I would like to recommend you to install Java language support by Red Hat. This one is the one. So it's by Red Hat. It has IntelliSense, checks your code and makes suggestion if you put something different, wrong, and all those things. And then the Maven by Microsoft. So these are the extensions you need, and please take a look at it and install them. So make sure you have those ready. So all you gotta do is just put the name, this one, install, and reload. That's it. And I have added the link here. Okay, so once you take care of those and you have Visual Studio Code with Spring ready, then we will create our first application. But the first application will be a skeleton, and we will use the SpringBoot web link itself to download the package. And for the second video, we will use Visual Studio Code extension, the Spring Initializr, to do it inside the application. We won't even download it from outside because it will do it for us. So let's do the first part. We'll go to internet browser, and that's the link there. It will be start.spring.io. And here we go. We have a Maven project. If you have Gradle, you can install that one, download that one, but we have a Maven, and we will choose Java, whatever is the latest, snapshot, so, or whatever you have already used, or someone makes suggestion for you, but for this tutorial, we will use the latest. Whatever is the last one is recommended. So here's the thing. This thing you may see it com.example. So this is called reverse DNS. Let me reverse DNS. So it's reverse domain name system, and you can take a look at it why this exists. The only short explanation is reversing the domain name will avoid conflict with domain names that already exist. So to avoid the conflict on DNS servers, that's why the idea when they came and created this to reverse it so it doesn't match. And when you look at the reverse, it's technically pretty easy. So this is how you would read it. So you have a company called apple.com. So if I reverse that one, it will become com.apple. And if I have a subdomain, so Apple is the main domain. If I have a subdomain, then it will be com.apple.iphone. iPhone is the department, but in domain itself, it would be iphone.apple.com. So let's try that, iphone.apple.com. Or the other good one is Microsoft.com. I think it is store.microsoft. I think they have it in India. So, or store.microsoft. So when you do reverse domain, you would put it in the opposite direction. So technically the Apple is the main domain, and after that iPhone is the subdomain. It's a branch of it. So for this project, our main domain will be com.xcars, and the artifact ID, this will create a jar package that we can use it as a snapshot, or we can run the command to run and have our application ready. And so this will be the project name, and we will call this ideas, because in this company we want the ideas of our employees. So it automatically copied it here. You will say, if you want to make a description, gather M's ideas for future car models. And whatever you type there, that package name, it will show you the whole package. Everything will be there, so we will take a look. So that's the reverse domain name system still, and we will be creating packages. So that's the package name. And now we will, since it's a web application, it's recommended to use a WAR package. And I can use Java 11 or Java 8. It doesn't matter because it does 11 does support 8. So, but you want to be specific for if you're working on a production environment with a team or something, or whatever is recommended. But we are learning, so we are gonna choose 8 because most people install Java 8. And then we need dependencies. So this is called dependency injection. So there are two ways to add it pretty much. One, you can just download the whole package here and give the name, or you can download the package then later add it in POM XML. I will show you where you need to add them. But to make it easy for us, we're gonna select our packages. The first one is web. So you want this one RESTful Spring MVC application, and that's Apache Tomcat. So we need this one to have our REST commands and server and Tomcat server, and then we need dev tools, and this will be for debugging and checking running our code for our project from terminal. And then we need GPA, which is Hibernate, and it says Java Persistent API, and we will see why it is an API, because that application is built once we type we create a Java class, and from that class it will translate our code to SQL, and that will run against the database and create database tables and stuff that we need. It will run all the queries. The objects will be translated to queries, and I will show you that in a moment. Okay, we add this one. Since we added this, remember, whenever you add the JPA Hibernate, you have to add a database connection driver with it. Otherwise, your application will fail. We will see why. So I'm going to choose MySQL Server driver. You can also choose, if you're on Windows, Microsoft SQL database, SQL Server database, or Postgres, or even Oracle. You can get the dependencies. But for this one, we will choose MySQL because it's most commonly used for now. And you can generate the project. Where has it generated? Let's see. It's in downloads, but I'm gonna put it on desktop. So that's the folder. It's a zip file. Double click, or you can right click and say extract. And actually I already had a folder like that. Where is it? There you go. Move to trash. So now it is there. I can drag and drop it in Visual Studio Code to open it, the package. The first time when you open, you will notice that it's gonna run, synchronize everything. And that's all the new plugins that's added, and it makes life easier. It did give me an error caution because it's Java 8, but we're using 11. That's fine. I don't need to be worried about that one. So the other way is easy. If you want to prefer using terminal, it will be cd idea, and once you see pom xml, this file, that's where you want to be. You just say code and it will open it back in the Visual Studio Code. Let me rerun it because it was already opened. So as I said, still we can run this, but it's gonna give us an error because we haven't added the driver for the database or the connection for the database. But let's see what is the error, because I want you to see it. When you do miss it, you know that that's the problem. When you start debugging it. So this part of the code is the dev tool. Here we go. It says problem. There's no URL for a data set, and there is no embedded database connection there or path. So for this one, we will need to we'll need to copy the connection configuration. I have already copied it here, or you can go to this link to see how to configure a database and connect them to your SpringBoot. So these are all the information. The only thing I would like you to read is this part, because that's the first DDL command. It says update. If the table does not exist, it's gonna create. If it already exists, it's gonna modify and make changes. So when you keep restarting your Spring Boot on each session, and it will keep updating the table, sometimes that becomes a problem because the table wouldn't match and your application may not work well. That's why we will sometimes need to create, we will need to drop the table and recreate it, the database, and recreate it. Okay, so the setting is there. I have already copied one in my clipboard, so I'm going to copy that one because I would like to not type the root, user, localhost, all these things. So let's get it. So Visual Studio Code. Let's open it first. There we go. So let me make it big. To add the setting, we will go to source, main, the sources, application.properties. So I have add that destination here. Let's see. Sometime when you add it, then you miss it. So it will be an application.properties, and that's the setting you want to add. And for myself, my database, so my database name is this one, but I would like to change that because that's a different one. So in this part, I would like to show you how to create the database and then add it. And that's my username, password, and that's the driver for MySQL. If you use a different database, dependency will be different, so you will need a different connection for that. So let's open MySQL Workbench. And if you have only installed MySQL Server directly from the website, their website, you will have 3306 as the port. And since I have installed the MAMP PHP local server environment, so I have a different path. My port is different, but it doesn't matter. You want to make sure you have the right port, and that port comes here. Let's create a database. We want to call it ideas. Create database ideas. Then the list, you can also type create schema ideas. They do the same thing. There's some minor difference. It's not worth to discuss it. And once we create, then we will say use ideas. And if we don't like, we can say drop ideas. That's the case when we have issue with our tables. But you never want to drop a database which has data. So just a practice environment. I'm gonna run the first command, create, then refresh it here so I can see it. I should see ideas along this line. There we go. But it's not active right now. To make it active, you would say use ideas. And the only time you want to make it active if you want to run a command against this database, a SQL command, which we will do it later. So that's created. Now we need this name. We're gonna put it right there after the port number. This line here is just sometimes you get with MySQL time zone error problem. You would just add that one. It will avoid that problem. So it's just extra. Sometimes it doesn't need it. If you have something installed like MySQL above version 5 and it becomes sometimes an issue, you do need to add it. Anyway, so that's the driver for MySQL, and I'm going to save it and then run again. So this time I can run it from this plugin or extension that I have installed. It's in the plugins too. So I would like to start this one here. Choose ideas run. So this will open debug console and run it here. It does make the suggestion that I have a deprecated version. It's easy to take care of it. Just copy that line. It has just one extra name in it, that's CJ. So let's restart, should go away. There we go, our application is running right now. But if I go here and type localhost 8080, which is the default port, it did react, but there is nothing to see. To make sure this application is working, I'm going to stop this one and we'll use the terminal there. We would like to come to Java, XCARS ideas. This one is called ideas application. So that's where a main class exists. And all you gotta do is just type system sysout app is working to make sure it is working. And now in terminal, I would run my command again, and this time it should work. So it says app is working. So this is the only skeleton, and this is pretty much kind of ready to build a RESTful API if you want to use a different front-end application like Angular, React, or Vue, or other front-end library or frameworks. However, we will be using JSP, which is a template engine, and on top of that we will add the JSTL, which is a standard library, tag library that we will be using it and to render our web pages and integrate our Java code. JSP is the same as Ninja if you have used Flask or Django in Python. So we won't be using any front-end frameworks for this tutorial, and I have included the link. If you already have knowledge, you can ignore it, but if you would like to read about it, that's the link there. And the model we will be working is it's JSP when you include it in part of MVC, which is model controller and view, is the JSP part is in view part, which will be the front end user, whatever user can see. So that's a circle there. It sends a request, gets the data, brings it back, and shows it to the user. So that is for the next video, and I hope you like this video. Please leave some feedback, comments, and if there are any issues, please point it out so we can fix it in future videos. Thank you for your time. See you in our next video, where we will be creating project using Visual Studio Code itself.